Journey to Freedom and Inner Peace, a book by Don Lamb. A step-by-step guide to retraining your brain to eliminate debilitating, acute, or chronic anxiety disorder. Out of 10 parts of life, 8 or 9 never go as planned. Chapter 1. My Experience. It was a winter day in January. I lay in my small attic room, cold and shivering. My health had been deteriorating recently. I always felt as if I was coming down with the flu. Every winter, I would usually endure a few weeks of a sore throat. But this time, after more than 2 weeks of medication, my throat no longer hurt, and my temperature was normal. Yet I felt that I had a low-grade fever, exhausted and curled up from the cold. Following my mother's advice, I soaked my feet in hot water mixed with medicinal alcohol and ginger that evening. Closing my eyes, I savored those rare moments of relaxation. As my body warmed up, I got into bed, ready to sleep. My mind drifted with endless thoughts. Suddenly, I felt my heart pounding, louder and stronger than usual. I could hear each beat distinctly. Why is this happening? Why did my heart suddenly feel so off? Oh, right. This morning at my desk, the same thing had happened for about 5 minutes. My heart had started racing unexpectedly, and an overwhelming sense of exhaustion, like I had just finished a long-distance run, swept over me. I tried to sleep, convincing myself that a deep rest would make everything better by morning. But I couldn't sleep. The irregular heartbeats made me increasingly exhausted and anxious. I tossed and turned until dawn. The last time I had suffered from insomnia was back in middle school. At that time, I had endured months of sleepless nights for no apparent reason. Since then, I had never experienced anything like that again, not even after drinking excessive amounts of coffee. What's going on? What's happening to me? I wondered. Could there be something wrong with my heart? Morning finally arrived, and sunlight streamed through the window. On my way to work, I felt a little better, but after making tea and settling at my desk, my heart once again started pounding slowly and heavily, and the same crushing fatigue took over. Of course, concentrating on work became impossible. The same thing happened the next night, and the entire following week. On rare occasions, I managed to get just 1 or 2 hours of sleep. Even soaking my feet in hot water no longer provided much relief. I tried everything: herbal teas, lotus seed heart tea, acupressure, but nothing helped. My mind was filled with restless thoughts and growing anxiety. With only a few weeks into my new job, mounting pressures left me unable to relax. I had no one to confide in, no one to share my inner turmoil with. During this time, I also noticed a decline in my memory and focus, something a colleague unintentionally pointed out. I would read reports but fail to recall the exact numbers. Meetings became a struggle, as I found it hard to concentrate and grasp key points. My ability to analyze and plan had weakened significantly. I withdrew into myself, losing interest in meeting new people or engaging in conversations. Talking to strangers? That was entirely out of the question. I could feel that something was wrong. But what exactly was it? A little about myself. I was born and raised in Gia Vian, Ninh Binh, a peaceful countryside where people live in harmony and are blessed by Mother Nature. The image of goats bleating as they graze on lush green mountains along the Hoang Long River, the vibrant grass carpets along the dike slopes, and flocks of white storks resting in the rice fields on summer days remain vividly in my memory. I had a childhood filled with countless memories of wandering and exploring nature with my friends. The cool, refreshing waters where we gathered to race each other, and even the village buffalo, continue to nourish the surrounding fields to this day. The hot springs, once teeming with brilliantly colored fish, have since become popular tourist attractions. The ancient temples where we used to play and cause mischief as children have gradually been renovated and transformed into scenic landmarks. My generation grew up without phones or the internet. On summer nights, we roamed the fields, catching fireflies amidst the chirping of crickets and cicadas, surrounded by the scent of grass and young rice shoots. In winter, we collected dry leaves to make bonfires, built makeshift clay ovens, and grilled freshly caught fish and shrimp. Like other children, I lived in harmony with nature, eager to explore everything and unafraid of anything. As a child, I loved reading and devoured books. Perhaps because of this, I was always more mature and thoughtful than my peers, even in elementary school. My parents, like generations before them, were farmers with little formal education, unable to provide much academic guidance. But through diligent study, I became a source of pride for my parents, excelling in school. It became my personal brand. I strove to be the best in every subject, aiming to be at the top of my class and even my school. Yet I wasn't sure why I did it or what I wanted to become. My parents never directed or interfered in my choices. I only knew that by excelling, I would gain recognition from my parents, teachers, and friends, giving me a sense of joy and security. When it came time for university entrance exams, I chose a school based on my achievable score and the choices of my friends, enrolling in an economics program. However, after 6 months, I realized it wasn't the right fit. After much contemplation, I decided to retake the exam and was admitted to the chemical engineering program at the University of Technology. At that time, I still hadn't discovered my true passion. My choice was based on the fact that I had spent time wandering around that university, feeling that its environment and people suited me. The entrance score was also within my reach. I believe many young people have had similar experiences. 5 years in university were enough for me to realize that I wasn't truly suited to be an engineer. A career in technical sales fit me better, and I pursued it for 4 years after graduation. Looking back, I see that most of my major life decisions up to that point had been made with little awareness or intention. Life had been generous, offering me opportunities, and whenever one appeared, I gave it my all to make the most of it. This approach had always worked, until external factors forced me to completely reassess the path I had taken. You may find some similarities between your experiences and mine. Being trapped in a long-standing identity or brand and feeling comfortable only when maintaining that image. We believe that's who we are supposed to be, the version of ourselves that others will accept. Having limited flexibility in career and life choices, sometimes appearing rigid or even stubborn in the eyes of others. Striving for perfection, believing that only by being flawless can we feel secure. Becoming workaholics, constantly keeping ourselves busy to ward off feelings of unease, never stopping to update our belief system. The seeds of our anxiety disorders took root much earlier than we realize. The peak of the crisis. By this point, I was extremely stressed about work and my future direction. I had read some articles online about stress and found several similarities with my own condition. Yet, deep down, I still worried and suspected that I might have a heart condition. When people endure emotional wounds, they tend to react in one of two ways. Either they withdraw to protect themselves or they lash out at others, all in an attempt to create a sense of safety for themselves. And some wounds leave deep scars, causing shocks that are hard to recover from. Have you ever witnessed the dishonesty or two-faced nature of someone you once trusted? Someone you believed should protect, love, and guide you, yet instead they hit you with a harsh reality check, like a slap in the face? If so, you probably remember the pain it brought. When it comes from someone you never had your guard up against, it feels like having boiling water poured onto an open wound, burning straight to the bone. It's the feeling of complete helplessness, having no support, no one to rely on, like missing a step and falling into a deep pit. I couldn't even react or defend myself at that moment. That shock became a snowball, picking up bits of stress along the way, eventually pushing me to the peak of my crisis. That night, I couldn't sleep at all. It felt like every cell in my body was stretched to its limit. In the following days, even the slightest tension triggered a sharp pain in the front of my head. I couldn't focus on work or pay attention to anything happening around me. I lost my ability to think and couldn't solve even the simplest problems. The impact on my heartbeat was even worse. At times, it felt like my heart was beating its final moments. What was happening to me? I was truly panicked. After talking to my sister, I decided to stay at her and her husband's place to regain my balance. Looking back, that was probably the wisest decision I could have made at the time. And this is the first piece of advice I want to give you. When you're stressed or experiencing emotional imbalance, never isolate yourself. Talk to someone and stay with your family or closest friends. In moments like these, your own mind can be your worst enemy. Family and friends will protect you, guide you toward healthier thoughts, and help you gradually find the path forward. And one more thing, I strongly advise you to consult your family before making any financial decisions during such times and to listen to their advice. When you're in this state, you're likely to make risky and disadvantageous financial choices. Anxiety disorder, emotional symptoms. I visited a private clinic to find out what was really wrong with me. After undergoing tests to rule out physical causes, the doctor diagnosed me with mild anxiety disorder. I was advised to read How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie, make lifestyle changes, engage in light exercise. Eventually, everything would stabilize, he promised. So, what is anxiety disorder? According to the American Psychiatric Association, anxiety is a normal response to life's pressures and can even be beneficial in certain situations. Anxiety helps us stay alert to dangers and prepare better. We are all familiar with the feeling of nervousness before an exam or a job interview. This kind of worry motivates us to study harder, research more, and be well prepared. However, anxiety disorder differs from regular anxiety in that the intensity and duration of worry are excessive and unnecessary. Anxiety can generally be categorized into two types: necessary and unnecessary anxiety, depending on how well it aligns with the actual probability of an event occurring. For example, when flying, you might worry about a plane crash, but you know the likelihood is extremely low since air travel is far safer than road or sea transport. So you only give it a fleeting thought before moving on with your plans. However, when excessive worry about a plane crash prevents you from focusing on anything else, that is anxiety disorder. This is the most common mental health condition, with scientists estimating that up to 30% of adults will experience it at least once in their lifetime. You are not alone. Many famous individuals have struggled with anxiety disorder. Adele, Albert Einstein, Lady Gaga, Emma Stone, Oprah Winfrey, and Demi Lovato have all been through what you are experiencing. Anxiety disorders manifest in various ways and are classified into different types. Generalized anxiety disorder, GAD. Phobia disorders, specific phobias, for example, agoraphobia. Panic disorder, social anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Health anxiety disorder, substance-induced anxiety disorder, anxiety caused by stimulants, medications, or substance intoxication. All these disorders share a common symptom: persistent fear or anxiety that is disproportionate to reality, occurring in situations where an average person would not feel threatened. The symptoms you may be experiencing, which I have also gone through, include sleep disorders, chronic insomnia. I was unable to sleep for months, even after trying calming teas, lotus seed tea, and even traditional herbal sleeping aids. As soon as I closed my eyes, my thoughts would rush in like a waterfall, making it impossible to relax and fall asleep. Excessive anxiety, always thinking of the worst possible scenarios. Fear that you might have brain or neurological diseases, even cancer. Daily, even constantly, fearing that you will never meet the right person to marry or worrying about potential dangers. At work, concern that you won't complete your tasks, belief that others will judge you negatively, doubt about your career future, and in general, an overwhelming feeling that you will never escape your current situation. In short, for those of us suffering anxiety disorder, life has become a chaotic mess of the worst possible outcomes, even though the actual probability of them happening is almost zero. Yet instead of focusing on the 99% positive aspects, we get trapped in that 1% of fear. Our powerful imagination makes these fears feel so real that we get lost in them. Other symptoms include lack of concentration, decreased attention, memory, and cognitive ability. When reading a book, for example, by the time we reach the next line, we've already forgotten the previous one. We struggle to remember what we ate this morning. We can't focus on conversations, failing to grasp what others are saying. We can't even perceive or pay attention to what's happening around us. Our IQ feels like it has dropped to zero. Even the simplest tasks overwhelm us. We may start stuttering or mispronouncing words, even if we never had this issue before, and we find it difficult to articulate our thoughts. There is a decline in willpower, loss of interest in things that once motivated you. I used to be a hardworking and passionate person in my job, but when I fell into this state of anxiety, it felt as if I had become someone else. One time, as I was walking up the stairs, I suddenly felt an overwhelming sense of exhaustion and discouragement, not because my body was too weak to climb, but because the feeling itself was overpowering. That was when I realized I was no longer myself. The things I once loved, like reading books, listening to English, going for walks, and playing with my pets, no longer brought me joy. This feeling extended to food, music, and even the people I had once been close to and cherished. It seemed my emotions had been frozen. People may see us as lazy, but in reality, our minds are just exhausted and in need of rest. Anxiety disorder, physical symptoms. All these symptoms fall under the diagnosis of autonomic nervous system dysfunction, dysautonomia. Rapid heartbeat. You may feel your heart beating abnormally fast. When this happens, you may become extremely fatigued and anxious. Headaches. The pain spreads throughout your head, especially in the frontal lobe area. The intensity of the headache is directly proportional to your level of anxiety. Excessive sweating even without significant physical activity. Increased blood pressure. Overactive sebaceous glands, making your skin oilier. Rapid, shallow breathing. Difficulty breathing or controlling your breath, sometimes feeling as if you might stop breathing. For me, when I closed my eyes to sleep, I would suddenly feel like I was about to stop breathing, making it impossible to fall asleep. Abdominal pain and digestive issues, ranging from mild discomfort to severe pain. Gastroesophageal reflux, acid reflux, ringing in the ears and eye strain, chest pain or tightness, body aches in multiple areas, muscle fatigue, weakness in arms and legs, feeling of throat tightness or obstruction, dizziness, lightheadedness, loss of balance, blurred vision, feeling unsteady while walking, numbness or tingling in hands, feet, face, or tongue, frequent urination, feeling abnormally hot or cold, a sensation of an electric current running down the spine or from the back of the neck to the top of the head, usually lasting just a few seconds, restlessness or discomfort throughout the body. You may experience some or even all of the symptoms mentioned above, along with additional ones. The intensity and frequency of these symptoms vary from person to person. Each individual has their own unique set of symptoms, with different occurrence patterns and severity. While struggling to understand what is happening to you, it is common to constantly search for your symptoms online to figure out what illness you might have. This is where the real trouble begins. You will come across countless articles describing symptoms of cancer, heart disease, lung disease, Parkinson's, dementia, strokes, brain tumors, cognitive decline, thyroid disorders, and more, often accompanied by alarming warnings. Inevitably, you will find some of your symptoms in these articles. It's not your fault. Most of us have developed the habit of Googling everything and getting instant answers. Our trust in Google is immense. However, there are two key mistakes in this approach. First, you don't have the exact keywords for the issue you're experiencing. A single symptom cannot be equated with a specific illness just because it appears in the list of symptoms associated with that illness. Second, when suffering from anxiety disorder, our ability to filter information and assess its accuracy is significantly impaired. You may find yourself chasing one diagnosis after another, spending a lot of money on medical tests without receiving any definitive answers. Many people become even more anxious after searching their symptoms online, especially if one of their symptoms is not listed in the articles they find. They start to believe that their case is different, possibly linked to another underlying factor than anxiety disorder. As you can see, what starts as a simple search for answers often leads to more confusion and unnecessary medical expenses. Our brain and body are incredibly creative in generating unusual symptoms. No matter how strange your symptoms may seem, rest assured that they are all caused by anxiety disorder. Nothing else. I spent months searching for other explanations for my symptoms, only to realize that true healing only began when I fully accepted and confronted their root cause. The bizarrest symptom of anxiety disorder. Depersonalization, which I will translate as disconnection from reality, is a common symptom and the one I found the most confusing. Some of its manifestations include a feeling of detachment from reality and everything around you, a sensation that your hands, feet, or body are shrinking, becoming distorted, or enlarging, a lack of control over your body movements, unsure where your hands and feet are, what you are doing, or what you are saying, a vague sense of unreality, including your physical surroundings, personal beliefs, and life purpose, a sense of unfamiliarity even in places that used to feel familiar. Severe cases may cause people to fail to recognize objects, their home, friends, or even family members. A feeling that things that once mattered to you no longer do. Emotions and senses become numb to everything around you. In this state, it feels as if your body and mind are disconnected. Everything seems hazy, like you are trapped in a dream. You lose connection with your senses and emotions. You don't know where your limbs are or what they are doing, and you feel neither joy nor sorrow. It's like your soul is inside a glass cage, observing your body from a distance but unable to feel or control it. You feel detached not only from your own body, but also from reality and everything happening around you. It's as if you are having an out-of-body experience, which is both terrifying and surreal. Words cannot fully describe it. Only those of us who have gone through it can truly understand. This state doesn't last long, but it tends to recur frequently, making us feel as if we are losing control and even going insane. However, a truly insane person does not realize they are losing control or going mad. You, on the other hand, are fully aware that something is wrong, but you don't know what it is, and that only adds to your anxiety. A day in the life of someone with anxiety disorder. The doctor's diagnosis and assurance that I would return to normal gave me peace of mind for a few days. I bought the book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, to read every night. At the time, I believed that this disorder was like the flu, something that would eventually pass. However, the pressures at work continued to affect me, and both my physical and mental symptoms showed no signs of improvement. A day could be summed up in one phrase: unceasing anxiety. Yes, I worried about everything. What if my condition is not just anxiety disorder? Will I make it through the 2-month probation period? What will people think of me? Do they see me as mentally unstable? Has someone found out about my condition and is gossiping behind my back? Will I ever escape from this state? And so on. The lack of sleep made me overthink even more. My mind felt like a runaway tricycle rolling down a hill without brakes, its spinning wheels representing my endless stream of thoughts, always fixating on the worst possible scenarios, impossible to stop. Mornings started with exhaustion from sleepless nights, anxiety about how the day would unfold, and fears of what could go wrong. Symptoms paid constant visits: racing heart, uncontrollable breathing, and persistent headaches. Irrational fears loomed, from oddly shaped trash bins to tattoos on pedestrians, from movie posters to loud voices around me and fear of being judged. I struggled to focus at work, at the market, while cooking. Driving became a challenge, my mind often blanking out mid-sentence, and fatigue consumed me. Many times, I felt as if I were being pulled into a deep, dark hole. Occasionally, I would try to crawl out, only to be dragged back in. Emotions dulled. I felt neither joy nor sadness, just an overwhelming emptiness, as if nothing in life held meaning anymore. At night, I battled with the thought of yet another sleepless night, wondering when this torment would end. A second doctor's visit. Weeks passed, and my condition only worsened. I was at a complete loss, unable to understand what was happening to me. Following my sister's advice, I went to an endocrinology specialist to check for hypothyroidism. She mentioned that a friend of hers had similar symptoms and stabilized after taking thyroid medication. Test results showed that my thyroid was normal, but my hormone levels were slightly imbalanced and were leaning towards hyperthyroidism. The doctor suggested that diet or stress could be the cause and advised me to make adjustments. If my condition remained unchanged after 2 months, I could undergo further testing. I was disappointed by the results. I had hoped for a clear medical diagnosis, something tangible to explain my distress and alleviate my confusion. My family was convinced that I was simply stressed due to environmental changes and work pressure. They advised me to relax, take a break, and change my perspective, assuring me that everything would return to normal. If you have ever been in my position, you've probably heard the same well-meaning but ineffective advice. People who have never experienced anxiety disorder don't realize that the internal brake needed to slow down and relax is broken. We cannot simply rest or think differently, as our friends and family recommend in good faith. They do not understand that advice is like someone with a severe leg injury being told to ignore the pain. The more you focus on the injury, the worse it gets. I couldn't concentrate at work, couldn't sleep, and my heart pounded in exhaustion. Eventually, I resigned from my job, deciding to take time off to fully recover. On my first day off, as everyone else left for work, I found myself alone at home. The emptiness was suffocating. I had never felt anything like it before. No hope, no purpose, no love, no emotional connection to anything or anyone around me. I just wanted to withdraw from the world. Writing became my only solace. Strangely, despite my mental and physical imbalance, I could articulate my emotions clearly when I put pen to paper. It was then that I realized a silver lining in my struggle. I discovered my talent for writing. I created a weekly schedule, attending psychology and healing workshops, reading self-help books, exercising, and spending time with my nephew, taking him to school and playing with him. Despite all this, the emptiness persisted, accompanied by irrational fears. At the time, I wasn't aware of how irrational they were. Two thoughts haunted me most. What if I had a neurological disorder like Parkinson's, dementia, or a brain tumor? And what if I never regained my memory and cognitive abilities, remaining trapped in this state forever? I spent most of my free time Googling symptoms of the illnesses I imagined I had, convincing myself and my family that the doctors had overlooked something in their tests. This self-perpetuating cycle of despair pulled me deeper into negativity. My willpower dwindled to zero. Suddenly, I became lazy, a word that had never existed in my vocabulary. I was exhausted, demotivated, unwilling to lift a finger. I felt utterly inadequate. The world around me seemed vibrant and full of life. Yet I was trapped in a dark abyss, unable to reach or connect with that brightness. My mind was clouded, everything blurred and distorted. My body remained in a constant state of fatigue, completely drained. One by one, my friends drifted away. Outsiders might judge us as lazy or lacking willpower, but they don't understand the battle we fight every day, the struggle against the feeling of becoming someone entirely different from who we are. Where was my way out? My experience with medication and the final decision. After staying home for a few days, I began to worry that if this continued, it would affect my career path. I had always worked relentlessly, never leaving any gaps in my resume. Remember, it had only been a few days. A brain afflicted with anxiety disorder is constantly on edge, wanting everything to move much faster than normal. We don't want and are afraid of the feeling of relaxation and rest. More accurately, we are incapable of achieving a relaxed state. We are always worrying, overthinking, mostly about scenarios we conjure up in our minds that have an extremely low probability of actually happening. Anything others say to us, no matter how reasonable, is often ignored. We are too consumed by our inner world and irrational fears to listen or absorb what others are telling us. Every time I visited the hospital and was reassured by doctors that there was nothing physically wrong with me, I would feel relieved for a few days. But soon after, the doubt would creep in again. What if the doctors missed something? What if they failed to recognize the severity of my condition? I felt my problem was the most serious one of all, and people needed to acknowledge it and help me through it. We who suffer anxiety disorder become selfish, thinking only about ourselves. After battling these imaginary monsters for 2 more weeks, I was completely exhausted. I cross-checked my symptoms with online searches on depression and anxiety disorder and concluded that my condition was above average in severity. I convinced myself that there was an imbalance in my brain chemistry and that medication was necessary to fix it. So, I packed my bags and headed to a top-tier hospital in the country. The process started, as always, with eliminating potential physical causes. As expected, the doctors confirmed that I had no physical health issues. However, after speaking with me, they suggested that I might benefit from medication in small doses to regulate my condition, starting with a 2-month prescription. The cost of the medication, my goodness, was incredibly expensive. I had hoped the doctors would provide me with an alternative solution or uncover some underlying medical condition. I held the medication in my hands, hesitating. My family advised me against taking it, warning that I would become dependent on it, that my problem was psychological and could only be healed through psychological means. Still, after much deliberation, I decided to give it a try. I couldn't bear this torment any longer. That night, about 30 minutes after taking the medication, I fell into a deep sleep until morning. It was the first time I had slept in months. When I woke up, my mind was clear, but from the neck down, my body felt stiff, my back glued to the bed. It took me about 30 minutes of lying still before I could sit up. I felt dizzy. My hands trembled uncontrollably, and any loud noise or sudden event sent a sharp jolt through the back of my head. It felt like there was an invisible barrier between me and reality. These were the side effects the doctor had warned me about. Yet there was one good thing. The constant noise in my mind had stopped. You know that feeling when your brain keeps generating endless conversations, hypothetical scenarios that consume you, making it impossible to focus on reality? That noise had finally gone silent. My thoughts became clearer. The doctor had said it would take 1 to 2 weeks for my body to adjust to the medication, and then the dizziness would subside. But I had made my decision. I wouldn't take it anymore. To me, struggling with my own mind was still more bearable than the side effects of the drug. At that moment, I resolved to fight this battle on my own. No medication, no more desperate searches for a physical ailment. The war between me and my mind had begun. By the second day, the dizziness had lessened, and by the third, it had completely disappeared. My hands had stopped trembling. In those few days, my mind became clear and still, like the surface of a calm lake. That silence gave me the space to think clearly about my next steps. That journey to freedom and inner peace, for myself, for others, and perhaps for you, is what this book is about.